40 years, 4 movies, and countless comics, novelizations, and games later, Dr. Henry Jones Jr., aka Indiana Jones, is one of the most iconic and beloved action heroes in all of cinema. The hat, the whip, the dashing good looks, and trademark Harrison Ford smooth talking, he's got it all. But let's take a look back at the title of his first adventure, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Certainly, the Raiders is in reference to Belloq and the Nazis, right? Or is Indy actually no better than the villains he faces off against?
Grave robbers will be shot.
Good thing we're not grave robbers.
Is Indiana Jones the bad guy? Or at least a bad guy? Consider this your official spoiler warning for a series in which the last entry was released over a decade ago. So let's go all the way back to the beginning, Peru 1936. We all know the scene, but in case you don't, here's a recap. Indy is in the jungle, has map, whips guy, finds temple, spiders, spikes, hole, whips again, darts, sand. And here is his goal, a fertility idol of religious importance to the Jovitos people of the Peruvian jungle. Let's skip ahead again. Sand, more darts, hole, whip, adios amigo, jump, adios amigo, big rock. Great, now you're caught up. Though in the final version of Raiders, an actual explanation of the idol was never really given, it was clear the importance it had to the local people. The Jovitos people treated Indy like nothing more than a grave robber. Idol Belloq, who is apparently friends with the Jovitos, takes the idol from Indy and we never see or hear about it again. At least not in the final cut of the film. The shooting script for Raiders lengthens Belloq and Indy's exchange and perhaps reveals why it was never included in the final release.
Tell me, did you get away with the idol?
I was lucky to get away with my life. The Jovitos proved quite narrow-minded about the whole matter.
Indy expressed genuine interest in whether or not Belloq was able to extract the idol, which begs the question, why was Indy trying to get the idol away? Was he trying to protect it, or was he in it for the very same reason Belloq was?
You and I are very much alike. Archaeology is our religion, yet we have both fallen from the pure faith.
It's also worth noting that in the same conversation, many of the lines that are said by Indy in the final film were originally Belloq's and vice versa. In fact, without the French accent and trademark Harrison Ford inflection, it's really quite difficult to tell sometimes whose line is whose without looking at the name. They both speak with the same prideful confidence, smarmy wit, and womanizing tone. They really are two sides of the same medallion. But you might be saying, oh, but Belloq is clearly bad for taking advantage of Marion. Well, about that. According to Karen Allen, who played Marion Ravenwood, the particulars of her and Indy's relationship prior to Raiders is less than legal, ethical, both. You may recall Marion yelling something at Indy during their argument at the bar in Nepal.
I never meant to hurt you.
I was a child. I was in love. It was wrong and you knew it.
Ugh, let's take that back a bit.
I was a child.
That wasn't exactly a hyperbole so much as a statement of fact. This relationship that they had, Marion was only 15 at the time, and on top of that, Indy is 10 years older than her. So yeah, 25-year-old Indy taking advantage of the 15-year-old daughter of his mentor and teacher, yikes. In the following film in the series, though a prequel to Raiders, Indy finds himself being asked to help a small Indian village reclaim a stone of significant religious importance to them and to save their children from imprisonment in a local palace. Sounds like a noble effort, something befitting a hero to take on, right? Well, Indy wasn't exactly keen on helping and was far more preoccupied with getting out of India. It's not until he hears about the actual nature of the stolen stone that his tune changes. This is followed by a rather revealing conversation between Indy and Short Round that shines an interesting light on just what motivates Indiana Jones.
Fortune and glory, kid. Fortune and glory.
Was Belloq right after all? Is Indy not so different from him? Is he really no better than a glorified grave robber? Despite his famous line of, "It belongs in a museum," his intentions more often than not aren't so noble as he makes it sound. Does Indiana Jones really have a code? Are his intentions to preserve the history and culture of peoples he takes these relics from? Or is he truly only motivated by fortune and glory? In the case of the Ark of the Covenant, Indy's involvement was forced onto him by the US government. Had he not gotten involved, the Ark would have fallen into the hands of Nazis. Or would it? Let's head to Nepal, where Indy meets Marion at her bar. Indy knew that the headpiece and staff of Ra were pivotal to locating the Ark. If he really wanted to keep the Nazis from locating the Ark, all he had to do was take the headpiece and melt it down, hiding the Ark forever. But he didn't. He took the headpiece, went to Egypt, and located the Ark. If Indiana Jones had never gotten involved, the Lost Ark would have remained just that, lost. No immortal Nazi army, no religious relic tucked away in a dark corner by the US government. Though his adventure started with good intentions, as it does with most films, in the end he always succumbs to his own curiosity to find these relics and treasures for himself. Fortune and glory.
You could get killed chasing after your damn fortune and glory!
Maybe. But not today.
In the case of the latter two entries in the series, Indy's initial goal isn't even the titular relics. In Last Crusade, he was trying to save his dad from the Nazis. In Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, he was just trying to find John Hurt or Harold Oxley, at least that's what he says. But I guess fortune and glory trumps all. So when Indy was out looking for his dad, what was his first idea? Why not just search for the Grail instead? Granted, this did backfire in his favor by attracting the attention of Chasm and his Secret Order pals, who did happen to know where Henry Jones Sr. was. So I guess we give him this one. Except, it doesn't change that he lied to Chasm and ended up looking for the Grail anyways.
I didn't come for the cup of Christ. I came to find my father.
In that case, God be with you in your quest.
But in the case of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, it's a bit harder to let him off. Honestly, this is likely just a fault of the script and story and not so much a dig on Indy's character. But following his meeting with Mutt, yes, he's a part of Indy lore whether you want to remember him or not, Indy doesn't really appear to be concerned about Ox at any point in the story. When they go to Peru to look for him, he just goes after the skull. When he finds Ox, he just gets all excited with Spalko and they figure out the next clue. For someone who's supposed to be an old friend of his, Indy doesn't really talk to Ox at all during the journey to find the skull. And really, this is just another case like the Ark. The Lost Kingdom would have stayed that way if Indy hadn't insisted that finding it was the solution to all their problems. Just toss the skull in the bottom of a lake and go home. Although I guess the skulls are needed to heal Ox. Again, just another fault of the script more than anything. The point being, Indy doesn't have any qualms using kidnapped friends and families as an excuse to go globetrotting for lost relics. It's no wonder that we rarely see returning characters in the movies. I probably wouldn't answer Indy's calls anymore after about the third time he let me get kidnapped by Nazis just so he can get the government to fund his next field trip. Willie said it best at the end of Temple of Doom.
If you think I'm going to Delhi with you or any place else after all the trouble you've gotten me into, think again, Buster. I'm going home to Missouri where they never feed you snakes before ripping your heart out and lowering you into hot pits. This is not my idea of a swell time.
Indiana Jones, the Raider of the Lost Ark. Though a legendary action hero who paved the way for all action heroes to follow, maybe isn't the hero we thought he was. But that's okay. On the same handsome token that's called Harrison Ford, Han Solo wasn't so great himself either. Smuggler, murderer, criminal, thief, same as Indy. An anti-hero of sorts. We, as the viewers, have only been made privy to the more heroic parts of his life story, so of course we assume him to be the good guy. I mean, when the bad guys are literal Nazis, anybody in the protagonist role would seem almost an angel by comparison. But no amount of good looks and charms can take away from what Indiana Jones really is, a grave robber. A grave robber with the attitude of a colonizer. Indy saw the relics of the world and said, "It belongs in a museum." Very specifically, a museum owned by a rich American. At the very least, return the Cross of Coronado to a Mexican museum, the Idol to a Peruvian museum, if not back to the people you stole it from. The Ark to Jerusalem, and so on. If you must take these things from their resting places, why not at least give them to the people they belong to? But alas, it is the 1930s. Bit of a different time. Maybe if Kingdom of the Crystal Skull had been a little better, they would have made a point of addressing his sketchy intentions. But hey, maybe next time? Anyways, this has been 10K Bill, and thanks for watching. Comment down below what you'd like to hear me talk about next. Follow me on Twitter at 10K Bill to yell at me about anything I may have missed. Support us on our Patreon if you like the show and want to see more content like it. And of course, make sure you subscribe for all your entertainment-related content.